This is a hearing item, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the hearing for anybody who wants to provide testimony on hearing item number 5, which is the matter of a non-exclusive franchise authorizing limited use of a public right-of-way in the unincorporated Spokane County. I do have one individual that's signed up. If there's anybody else in the audience who'd like for it to provide testimony on this, please come forward when the next speaker is done. We'll give you 3 minutes to provide testimony. When you hear the buzzer, please try and wrap it up. If you haven't finished your comments, you can submit something. Well, actually, if you haven't finished your comments, if you got them in writing, please hand them to us before we take an action. So with that, the person I have signed up is Stephen Burke. Stephen here? Yes.
My name is Stephen Burke. I live over in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I'm an employee with Mobility. What the previous speaker failed to mention to you was about a year and a half ago, Mobility started negotiations with the Spokane County to enter into a franchise agreement. That franchise agreement was approved, and we were on our merry way to build some of our infrastructure in the right-of-way. We actually built the site, and 6 months after the franchise agreement was fully executed and approved in this very chamber here, we were told that the county failed to provide the proper number of notices. And so we had to go back and do the franchise agreement over again, even though it was already approved and blessed by the members of the commission. And then I found out that that this time around, the county decided that they were not going to recommend approval, even though they already approved it before. This time around, they decided they weren't going to recommend approval, even though we built the site in the right-of-way, and it was in operation. We had various meetings with the county, and we decided that a license agreement would be the way to go instead of a franchise agreement. So in good faith, we entered into an agreement with the county to pursue a license agreement, and we had numerous conversations and meetings. And at your meeting this afternoon, the commissioner meeting at 2 p.m., I found out that it was the license agreement that was recommended by the county to pursue after they told us they didn't want to go with the franchise agreement, that it was denied. And we tried to reach out to the county and talk with various personnel there to open up a dialogue prior to having this commissioners meeting, and they failed to respond to us. We had no opportunity at all to address some of the issues that they thought were reasons to recommend denial of the license agreement. So I'm here today to say, first off, for lack of a better word, I find it deplorable that the county treats businesses like this. We've invested time and money to bring this technology to the county as a benefit to the county and to the citizens who live here, and for you to have this anti-business attitude is disappointing and very frustrating. My company is very, very upset about this because we thought we were on our way. And we're only looking at 3 sites here. It's not a Vista or CenturyLink. We're looking at 3 sites here. And I know my time is up, but the county failed to respond to me with emails or phone calls, so I would like to take a little more of the county's time, since they proved to be unresponsive to me in earlier opportunities.
The process is for 3 minutes for folks that want to provide testimony and stuff, and your time has expired, sir. I do
Well,
want to adhere to the
that's
process.
kind of par for the course with you guys. I would like to offer a continuance of the franchise agreement for a month from now.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to provide any testimony on hearing item number 5? Second call for anybody wanting to provide testimony on hearing item number 5, third and final call. Seeing nobody come forward, I'm going to close the hearing, look to my fellow commissioner for direction.
Mr. Chairman, after consideration of the recommendation of the Spokane County engineer, as well as public testimony on Mobility's application for a non-exclusive franchise to install high-speed data transport network that consists of a variety of installations, including attachments of small cell equipment to existing utility infrastructure and the placement of new wood or steel utility poles within county right-of-way, I hereby move to move to deny the application.
I will second the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
There are several reasons why I will support my motion. First, as noted by the county engineer, public right-of-way is primarily for transportation purposes. Any uses other than transportation not only distract from the primary use, but create risks to the traveling public in conjunction with utility installations and maintenance. Other uses may be allowed in the public right-of-way, but for the most part, these uses are granted to other public and quasi-public entities providing public services such as sewer and water service. Franchises should be granted to applicants providing utility-type services for the benefit of the public. Second, to date, Spokane County has not granted franchises to any applicant to install small cell technology within the right-of-way. Instead, applicants can install small cell technology on private property consistent with applicable county land use regulations until Spokane County has considered the adoption of land use regulations and or an ordinance addressing the use of county right-of-way for small cell wireless technology. It is premature to consider and grant on a case-by-case basis applications for small cell wireless technology, which might have the effect of granting franchise to one applicant, which may be different than to another.
Thank you, Commissioner. So with that, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect the motion passes unanimously. That gets us to hearing item.
Chairman French, with respect to that last motion, may I request that the maker of the motion possibly make a second motion, and the second motion would authorize the staff to prepare findings of fact consistent with the motion, which would be presented to the board at a subsequent non-public meeting for your review and execution.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect that the motion passes. Anything else that we need to take care of, Mr. Amacio?
Nothing. Thank you, Chairman French.
Thank you. So that gets us to item number 6, which is, I'm sure, why the majority of you are here. The county is looking at being able to adopt a budget for 2018 that will be a fiscally constrained budget. Originally we were thinking that as we embarked on 18, we would do a levy lid lift and provide the public the opportunity to tell us what level of funding they wanted to provide for county services. The legislature, in addressing the McCleary decision, ended up imposing on property tax, or our taxpayers in the county, about 90% of our taxpayers, a tax increase for 2018 of about 87 cents per thousand valuation. And so Commissioner Kearns and I felt that our taxpayers were already carrying a large burden for next year, and it was not the kind of climate to ask for direction from the voters in terms of what they wanted to do with county finances. So we have embarked on a process to live within our current means, and that means a constrained budget for 2018. We have also adopted a resolution to try and make this process extremely transparent. We've engaged in a number of outreach measures to try and find what the will of the voters is, what are the desires of the taxpayers as we shape the budget for 2018. And so we appreciate the fact that you are here to share with us what your priorities are. We have not made any final decision. The purpose of the hearings is to hear what the public wants, and that will help us shape what the final budget looks like. So again, we're looking for direction, we're looking for priorities, we're looking for input. If you have some solutions about opportunities to be able to reduce cost, we're open to those too. But this is a very different kind of budget process than the county has been engaged in for as long as I've been here. We want to hear from you. We want to know what your priorities are. So thank you very much for taking time out of your day and sharing them with us. We do provide 3 minutes for each individual to share with us your thoughts. If you want to give your 3 minutes to somebody else, that is fine. Just fill out one of the yellow papers and let me know who you want to give your 3 minutes to. If somebody else has said what you would have liked to have said, or you agree with somebody else and you already signed up to testify, you can say, you know what, I agree with Speaker X, and that's sufficient. What we're trying to do is create a record. We want to get to know what your will and desire is. So if at the end of this meeting you go home and you go, wished I could have said of whatever that is, this is a process. So there'll be more hearings. There's more opportunity for you to share your thoughts with us. If you don't want to come back to a hearing, please send an email or letter or a phone call and share your thoughts with us. And we're recording all of that. That's going into the record as well. This is the transparency policy that Commissioner Kearns and I adopted last week. And it's our commitment to try and make sure that we're doing everything in full view of the public and with the full engagement of the public as we go through this process. So with that, then I will read through the list of speakers that I have. I'll take them in the order that they were signed up. If you did not sign up to speak, but halfway through the meeting you go, you know what, I need to say whatever it is you need to say. I will ask at the end for anybody to come forward. You can fill out the yellow slip and give it to the clerk, and she will hand it down to me, and we'll give you the opportunity to share your thoughts with us. So with that, the first speaker that I have signed up to speak is, and if I do mispronounce your name, I apologize. It's not deliberate, I assure you. Sometimes I'm challenged in reading the handwriting, and so I apologize that up front. You've already heard what the 3-minute buzzer sounds like. I will not start the timer until you start speaking. I'm not going to give you the hook the minute the 3 minutes is up, but I would ask that you try and wrap up your comment so that we can be respectful of the folks behind you. Were any of you here last week? I know that Rick wasn't. So for those that were here last week, the buzzer did go off on me, so I had to shut up. So forgot to turn it off. So with that, the first person to speak is Charles Stalker.
Thank you, Commissioner French and Commissioner Stearns, for allowing us to speak with you this evening. I'd like to talk to you about the budget, and I want you to remember 3 things. 3. This county has set them, in my opinion, in priorities, and the number 1 is public safety. If the citizens of the county are safe, we feel secure. And when you look at public safety, it's a wide spectrum of areas. The sheriff's department, the court system, all of those are involved. I think we're well aware of how short our deputies are at this time, and being from Newman Lake and in the valley, we need protection. Being a retired school superintendent, one of the areas that I'm very concerned with is scope, where we have the entire county covered by scope volunteers, which saves this county over $2 million in costs. Now, I realize our scope budget is small compared to the sheriff's budget, but when you're talking about a 7% reduction on a $300,000 budget, to us, $21,000 is a lot of money. So again, if it's a number one priority, you're going to maintain it. What's goal number two? It's our roads. A lot of road systems. We have to get kids to school. We as citizens must travel on that. I encourage you to maintain the maintenance of the roads, the snow removal that is needed, and take a very close look at potholes, because I had an extremely good experience with them myself this last year to the tune of over $1,000. And item number three is recreation and parks. If our kids and our adults are involved in activities, it's going to help the public safety people. It will keep us active, and also will help in the healthcare industry. So again, as you're looking at your budget, in my opinion, you set those goals: item 1, public safety; 2, roads; 3, recreation, and then worry about the remainder in order to finalize it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stocker. So, Mr. Stocker raises a point that I want to make everybody aware of. What we are talking about is the funding in the general fund, and the general fund pays for the criminal justice system and all of the basic services. The road department has a totally separate fund, and it is fine. It is a totally separate fund. It's protected. Nothing is going to impact that. We also have enterprise funds, solid waste fund, number of utility fund. All of those are financially sound. It is only the general fund, and it's the general fund, unfortunately, that pays for the criminal justice system, as well as all of the other basic services, including parks, for the county and stuff. So just to kind of help with the record there. Okay. I got it right, I quit. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. So the next speaker is Clyde Reese.
That was very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner French, Commissioner Kearns, Mr. Gemmell, I thank you for your time. I'm coming in my 79th year as a resident of Spokane County. I grew up in the city, and my wife and I currently reside in the county. I came on the Sheriff's Department in 1963 and retired in 1995. I was kind of interested in listening to the young ladies about domestic violence. In 65, as a young deputy, I got involved. I was probably 185 pounds. Got involved with a man that was about 6'6" and about 300 pounds. Came out of Vietnam, and every time he got drunk, he wanted to fight. We went to his house one night, and he knocked his wife out. She fell to the floor with a club. She fell to the floor like a sack of rags. The wrestling match was on, and I took him down and held him down for about 30 minutes, and finally he said he would go to the jail. And I'd had many dealings with him in the past, so I knew him. And finally he got up, and we ended up wrestling again. I tried to carry him out of the front door, and he broke my back. We ended up in the snow, and I ended up getting him in my car and off to jail. But and that was due to inadequate backup. The sheriff's office, in my recollection, has only been adequately staffed in probably about 1970 when we were building the public safety building, and through Expo 74. We know about Freeman, what happened there. My wife and I live in a private unit development off of 57th, and we were out of town, but there was a domestic violence situation, and a man was shooting up the neighborhood. The city police got there before the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office was way out of position, and they ended up in a shootout and killed the man. right in the, over our back fence. I know that money is tight, and I appreciate what you're trying to do to keep taxes down, but I strongly urge you in the future to add taxes. You know, we all want something, but at all costs. And we want better law enforcement in the county. We want more law enforcement, and we want the sheriff to feel that his people have adequate backup. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker I have signed up is Marilyn Klein.
Good evening, County Commissioners, our attorney, Mr. Maceo, and Gemmell. Again, I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak. I would just like to remind you a few things about your job. We elected you, and you work for us, and I believe you said that last week, Mr. French. As a citizen, public safety is very important to me. You also ran on that. Our sheriff department is a very large part of public safety, and you continue to take money from them. Again, as a citizen, I don't understand that. We have many deputies from Kootenai County because the pay was so bad, they came here as a lateral, and now as a result, their pay has equaled ours, and we have no more Kootenai County coming. But now the city of Spokane's pay is better than the county pay. So the city is taking our deputies on a lateral. Better pay, they get paid to go to school, and they get money for other things, so our guys are going to the city. What is it going to take for you guys to realize this? Some of our great deputies took the lateral when the last city did the hiring. Our public safety is at an all-time low. The number of deputies per 1,000 people is embarrassing. This is your job to see that the citizens are kept safe, and now we're talking another 1.3 million deduction. That, to me, that's pathetic. So again, I would like to ask you to rethink your 7% across the board and give the sheriff money instead of taking money from him. We really need to keep him, and we really need to keep all of our deputies. Thank you.
So let me explain a little bit about the process we're going through. We have a gap that represents about a little over 7% of our budget from last year to, or from this year to next year. The process has started by going to all of the departments and asking everybody, here's the gap, here's your target, see if you can find it. We're looking for economies. We're looking for how to do county government different. We're looking at things, as Commissioner Milke used to say, stupid stuff you did for no apparent reason. Things that have been done for years because they're legacy that we just can't afford to do anymore. So once we have got the final or the draft budget prepared, which will be coming out with that about the middle of next month, then we'll come back to that budget and say, where can we, where do we need to make adjustments? So it is a process. I do not believe that all the departments will end up being impacted by the 7%. The situation we're in, and if you haven't gone online to look at the earlier presentations that described how we got here, I would encourage you to do so. It's on YouTube, and I think it's also on our county webpage. It talks about we are now at a point, and it's not just Spokane County, it's just counties across the state, at a point to where revenue has been decreasing for the last 20 years. And we all have been part of that process. Initiative 695, when it passed and got our lower license plate fees, well, part of that money paid for services that the county provided. When 747 was passed, that put a cap of 1% on property tax. Well, when our expenses are rising faster than 1%, that's a losing proposition. With annexations, with incorporations, with unfunded mandates from the state where they have said, you shall do this, and oh, by the way, we're not going to give you any money to pay for it. A great example of that is the legislature in their last session required that we're going to provide drop boxes for ballots in every jurisdiction within the county. A stamp works great, but now we're going to do that, and that's going to cost us another $50,000. Hearst's decision from the state Supreme Court has cost the county close to $400,000 this year. That was unbudgeted money that was imposed upon by the state Supreme Court. The state is responsible for paying for indigent defense. They don't pay for it. We end up having to pay for it. That's about a $6 million hit to our budget. So the accumulation of all of these different activities has eroded the tax base for the county. When the recession hit in 2008, revenues dropped for the county. It took 7 years for us to get back to where we were in 2008. When you have a consumer-driven recovery, which is what we've had, where people buy more, whether it's cars, houses, appliances, boats, snowmobiles, whatever they buy, they generate sales tax. Well, those sales tax generators used to be in the unincorporated area of Spokane County. Now they're in the incorporated area of the cities. And that tax revenue stayed with the cities, doesn't stay with the county. And so we still have to provide the same level of service, but we have less revenue. So we've just now, like many counties across the state, have reached a point to where we need to fix this. And many counties have increased taxes, as the gentleman indicated. You know, if we're going to maintain the services we have, we need more revenue. That was the question we were going to put before the voters in November. If you want us to maintain services, are you willing to pay more for the services that the county provides? If you're not, we can live within our means. Living within our means is reduction in services. And so that's the challenge we're at right now. So neither one of us are here by our choice or by our decisions. We're here because of accumulation of events that have happened over the last 20 years, and it's finally come home to roost. So, Henry Valder, did you want to speak on the budget? Okay.
Without adequate, Henry Valder, maybe homelessness again. Without the resources that the sheriff needs, he's unable to take care of cases like mine. And these people that would come out to watch while I loaded up whatever belongings I have are in a way helping. But the big problem in my area up there in the valley is homelessness. I know the valley says they don't have a problem with homelessness. And I know that the county got $1 million for the homelessness. Well, couldn't some of that go for 2 more police officers in the valley that could help to curb the problems we have with homelessness? And I'll leave that at that. I want to address another part of the budget that you're going to be Xing out the vet's garage, and I can see money's tight, and we have to do that. But now we have the calf that's opened up at the valley. And just an idea for thought, because as we were going through what we could do with the vet's garage, we saw that the parking lot could be used for a farmer's market, like you have over there with the rich people. But I guess that was tossed out. Or a car show. So now you got this calf down there, and thank you to the news that is redoing that. What if they had a place that they could sell coffee there? It would be an ideal place for a little snack place. You guys are constantly going there. I watch the numbers where it could be some kind of calf. And then you know what? Maybe that calf in the valley would be self-sustained and they'd be able to pay their rent or hire some people, or put their people to work. It's like Mark Richards now has the program that the city just put up, I think $39,000, so that they can hire these people that would be out there panhandling. They just have to get enough money to make the rent meet and can pay them on a daily wage. Like the city of Spokane last night talked about housing, buying their own houses and having this fund for houses. Maybe you could join, because after all, we should be a municipality by now. That's where the problem lies. And until a politician stands up and runs on that, and we have it, we're going to be duplicating services as we are, both in the valley, Airway Heights, and then the other, I would say, I'll write the letter for you, call NASCAR, get rid of that track and make it the Dale Earnhardt International Speedway, with the Hall of Fame for the Western drivers. Thank you. God bless you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Henry. The next person I have signed up is Mary Hathaway.
My time, I've had so many.
Thank you. Jack Hathaway has yielded his time to you too, so you've got 6 minutes.
I'm going to try and read it really fast.
Okay, give me a minute because I'm going to reset this.
My name is Mary Hathaway, and I live out in Deer Park. I've come to speak to you tonight because I take this idea of budget cuts to our sheriff's office really personally. I would like to tell you what it is like being a victim of a crime and why we should not decrease the sheriff's office budget. A few years back, our lovely neighborhood that had not really ever seen crime began having problems. One by one, many of our homes were robbed. Criminals stole expensive items from our garages, our yards, and our homes. One afternoon, my 180-pound dog even stopped a man from actually attempting a home invasion through my window while I was home alone with Grandpa that I take care of. It was during this time we started our neighborhood watch. We created it because of our frustration with the dwindling resources of our officers and our feeling of helplessness in our county. A few weeks ago, in early August, something happened that has forever changed me. I was attacked in my own driveway in broad daylight by an oxygen delivery guy, and I won't bore you with all the details, but I was lucky enough to fight him off and be left with only a badly sprained arms, bruises, and scratches. But as he left, he made a threat regarding the safety of my daughter. This was a professional man in uniform for his company delivering oxygen to Grandpa, not a typical person you would suspect, not a gangbanger, not a street thug. Crime happens in all neighborhoods eventually, in all types of ways, by all sorts of people, not just in certain neighborhoods like so many think. After this attack, I found out what being a victim is like in our already overburdened system. I found that it can take hours for an officer to arrive because they have so many calls they cannot honestly get to them all in a timely manner. It's not their fault. There's just not enough officers to go around out in the county. I found out that they can't move all the crime reports forward with all the information that they need, and they don't have enough people to do that either. I found out that the entire system moves very slowly due to extreme caseloads. I learned that being a victim of a crime changes you. I have flashbacks of being attacked. I'm not a crier, but I cried for days, and then off and on for weeks. I'm jumpy when anyone gets too close to me in public. I don't feel safe in my front yard for the very first time in my nearly 50 years of life. I am terrified that this lunatic will still try to come back and harm my daughter. I jump at noises when I'm at home. I'm afraid to walk across a parking lot, and I don't trust people the way I used to. I've spoken to many other victims, and most of them have experienced far worse than I have. Crimes against some of them have torn apart marriages, families, and ripped to shreds the lives of the children that are involved. Being a victim changes you against your will, often forever, and it can happen to any one of us. We live in a time where police are being disrespected, attacked, and hunted. They don't have enough of them to protect us, and they don't have enough of them to protect each other on the street. These brave men and women are our precious resource. They're willing every day to strap on a badge and stand between us and the bad guys. They deal with the terrible things that violent offenders have done and the often horrendous aftermath so that we don't have to, so that we can go about our mostly comfortable lives, not worrying if our daughter or our loved ones will be robbed, raped, or attacked today. They deserve more officers to keep each other safe. And they need help to do their honorable job that more and more budget cuts are preventing them from being able to do effectively. Crime is escalating. Criminals are evolving. The criminals all know that our county is understaffed, that homes out in the county are easy picking. What if this was your home? It's pretty common knowledge out there that there are not enough officers to go around. Reducing the sheriff's office budget even more paints a huge target on our backs and on the backs of the officers out there trying to help us. Recently, the Department of Transportation reported to the Deer Park City Council that their projections show an explosion of population for our area. They predict that our town of Deer Park will triple in population in the next 10 years. That was a triple. That doesn't even include growth from the rest of the county. So each year that goes by, even without a reduction in budget, the population growth is already reducing the coverage of officers to people ratio. At a time when we are so desperately need more coverage, why would we reduce the budget? A 7% across the board reduction. It's not acceptable when it comes to the point of our public safety. So I ask you, where is the money that can be added instead? We pay a lot of taxes. Our money has to go to something more important than roads or trees or rocks or, I don't know, mowing the lawn in the front yards. Surely it must be allocated to things that are less important than the safety of our citizens and officers. What could possibly be more important than that on your budget? Our safety is the job of the Sheriff's Department, and taking away the ability of them to do the job only makes more victims than we can handle, possibly from your family or mine. And we lose the battle against rising crime as it takes over our streets, schools, and once safe neighborhoods. There's only one way to prevent this, the only way to take back our streets and neighborhoods from criminals, and that is to actually increase the budget for our Sheriff's Department. Increase officers on the street and behind the scenes to follow up on crimes. If you catch them after the first few crimes they commit, you can prevent the next 20 or 30 they commit if not caught. With each one taken off the streets, you save countless people from becoming victims and save money down the road and deter more wannabe criminals. Instead of painting that target on our backs and emboldening criminals by decreasing this budget, you could make our towns safer. Right now it feels to me, I'm almost done.
No, go ahead and finish.
Right now it feels to me that whether my children are safe in our yard and in our home depends on a very small handful of people, you. It all rides on whether you find our safety as important as the safety of your family, whether you are willing to cut budgets in less important areas to fund the safety of our citizens. You have the power right now to save lives or help criminals take them. I ask you this evening to do the right thing and to decide that public safety is more important than anything else on your budget. Please do not decrease that budget. We need it increased. Thank you for your time. I also have letters from other people in our neighborhood that asked me to bring them to you. Do I pass them?
Oh, you bet. Thank you. And again, this hearing is going to be open through November, so if any others want to submit writing letters or anything, please feel free to do so. My next speaker is Donna O'Leary.
Commissioners, people that came to hear, I'm very concerned. Public safety is the top priority, the #1 priority of government. I can't believe that we're even discussing cutting from public safety. We've got a massive influx of people moving into the area, and we're talking cutting. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I know there's other areas in which you're considering cutting. Where is it that we, the public, can find the list of other areas that you're considering cutting? I would like a list of that. I think it's a major mistake to cut from the Sheriff's Department and public safety. That's all I have to say. I would like to add that you would actually add more money to public safety and not cut.
You. So one of the things that we have asked staff to do in this process is to keep a list of all of the ideas that we have, either generated by the public, generated by electeds, or generated by staff, for ways to achieve greater efficiency. And so each one of these, we were going to explore and be able to report back, yes, this saved us X number of dollars. No, this doesn't save us any money. Yes, it might save us money over a period of time. So we will have that for the public to be able to see as well as us. It'll be one of those tools that we use in going through to make sure that we've tried to scrub everywhere we can to be able to close the gap. And again, we are not here by any choice of our own. This is, there are a lot better places we'd rather be than where we're at, but we're going to make it through this process. Next person I've got signed up is Laura Williams.
Thank you for making this type of hearing event. I have an immediate family member that has served in the Sheriff's County Department for almost 20 years. I am here as a citizen of our community since 1970. I've watched tremendous changes that have been good and also very negative in this community. In 1990, we were a more properly staffed with the Sheriff's Department than what we are today. And I'm fortunate enough to have lived into my middle 40s before I ever became a victim of a crime. And I lived out in the northern part of Spokane County, and at that time it was a 45-minute response time for a deputy to make it in the area where I lived, unless there was a deputy already out in the Deer Park region. We had a person break into our home. I had no idea if they were still in the home when our children were arriving home from school. This person was apprehended, broke into 8 other homes. One of those persons died from the stress of this home invasion that occurred in their place. Today, in 2017, we are down to 0.6 deputies per 1,000 in the Spokane County when the national average is 2 per 1,000. And we're talking about, again, constraints and restricting or decreasing the budget. The first responsibility that you all have, and you've heard it many times, is public safety. And I understand that fiduciary responsibility. I have served 9 years for the state of Washington in a governor-appointed position in which I worked with horrendous budget constraints and deficits. But as we made rules and passed them to the legislature branches to make decisions on, we did everything within our powers to make sure that this public safety for the Washington State Department of Health was met. That was my first and foremost fiduciary responsibility, and I deplore all of you to remember that as well as we make these decisions. Are you aware that we only have 4 detectives in the sex crimes department to cover all of the horrendous crimes that happen in this county? That a lot of these cases take over 6 months for them to be able to find the time to investigate these and then get warrants out to arrest these folks? They have 1 detective in the sex offender registration to oversee the registration of these offenders. They're all having to go into a great deal of overtime to conduct the personal verifications that have to be done for nearly 1,600 sex offenders in our community that we currently are dealing with. Our major crimes and homicide are also dealing with the same sorts of issues. They're almost down half in both of these departments, to speak just of those 2, in our county in providing services to our community. Nearly every day, shifts requests for volunteers are coming out to all of our deputies in uniform after already serving their shift time to do another 12-hour. That's tough on them. It's tough on their families. It's tough on this community because in order to have it grow and be a healthy community, we need to have the proper protection in this community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next person I have signed up is believe it's Karen Chapman.
Gentlemen and gentle lady. My name is Karen Kit Chapman. I belong with Scope North. And last week I was here. I left with more questions than I had answers. So I went on the internet and started checking things out. And what I found was appalling. Spokane County is one of the worst ones for property crimes because there is no deterrent, nor there is any consequence. Deterrent meaning officers, boots on the ground, or the jail, which is basically a free bed and breakfast for so many of them. And they're out in a couple days. Ozzy's working with a skull crew. He needs more men. That's all there is to it. He needs more. He also needs to hire more. Being 30 down is not good. Being 40 down is even worse. In my studies of the internet, I found the county household makes about $47,000 a year. Employees of the county employees make $50,000. Deputy, entry-level, commissioned, makes $50,000. The state average household makes $69,000. We're way below what the rest of the Washington state is. Mr. Gemmell, you told us last week we get a 1% increase for the coming from taxes. Yes. 1%. Yes. You folks, the commissioners, want to take 7% away from the protecting our service, our sheriff's department, and all that. I discovered also other counties throughout the United States, their commissioners actually denied receiving a pay increase because their counties were in trouble. I also discovered that the commissioners got a 19% pay raise last March. $93,000. That's more than I paid for my house. You were increased $17,700 a year. That's $3,000 more than my retirement Social Security check. The way you figured this is that you had a committee that studied the counties, Kitsap, Clark, a few others, 5 of them, and I figured out their averages for their commissioners, and bingo, that's the magic number that you were going to receive. You didn't figure that Spokane's mean income was only $47 per household. We were the lowest in that lot of 6 counties. I don't understand this. I don't. If we took what they promised you, $17,700, and added the 3 county commissioner seats, you would have had enough money to bring on 1 commissioned deputy. Now, the city council of Spokane makes $45,000 a year. Now, if you went to that price, that's a $200,000 savings. We would have had 4 more deputies. Think about that.
So let me provide some additional information for you on some of the statements that you made. One, Out of the general fund, we have 45 departments that are funded under that. The majority of those are in the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system represents about 75% of the total budget for the general fund. When you take all of the funds for Spokane County combined, it's a $700 million corporation. The general fund is 171 million of that $700 million corporation. The salary that is set for elected officials is done by an independent salary review commission. The Board of County Commissioners had not received any increase in salary in 11 years. 11 years. The employees for the county during that period received more increases than the Board of County Commissioners. So the Salary Review Commission was the one that said this is the appropriate level for funding, not us. When the Salary Review Commission sets the salary, we don't have the authority to change that or alter that.
You could have denied that. The president denied his paycheck.
So the our employees during that same period of time went for 5 years without a salary increase. Not only did they go the 5-year period without a salary increase, they also increased their contribution for medical health insurance and stuff. So I've said it before and I'll say it again, our employees have carried a significant load. The sheriff's office is currently approved for more deputies to hire. The challenge is that there aren't the deputies out there to be hired. It takes a long time to put a deputy on the road. They've got significant training, apprenticeship, and it's not only in the sheriff's office, it's also in detention services as well. One of our challenges is overtime. We do not have enough deputies on the road to make sure that we can keep every shift fully manned without some of our deputies pulling overtime. As I said last week, there are counties in the state that do not have 24/7 coverage for the sheriff deputies in their counties. We fortunately still do. Is it thin? Yes. Would we like to have more? Yes. Again, some of these other programs that are state mandated programs, we cannot just say, we're not going to fund that anymore. Because you know what happens? If it's a state mandated program and we don't fund it, the state can come in and do the program and then charge us for it. We'll do a much better job of doing it than having the state take over some of these responsibilities. So, again, as I indicated earlier, we as a community have made decisions over the last 20 years that have slowly eroded the financial stability of Spokane County. We showed that on a chart about a month ago. This is not unique to Spokane County. There are counties across the state. I just attended a Washington State Association of Counties meeting last Friday where counties across the state are dealing with this challenge and how do we fix it. And one of our challenges is a state legislature that is not sharing the revenues that they need to be sharing with the local jurisdictions. We are the agent of the state. We provide a lot of services for the state, the tax assessor, the auditor, the treasurer, the clerk, the courts. These are services that we provide at the local level on behalf of the state. They're supposed to share revenue with us, and that hasn't happened to the level that it needs to cover the services we're providing. So this is a combination of a whole lot of things. Our goal is to try and find a solution and a pathway forward and to develop a priority list that'll get us through 2018. Then we'll look at how do we deal with 2019. As I indicated earlier, I would not be surprised, but we haven't made that decision yet, but I would not be surprised to see the ballot measure that we were putting before the voters this November be on the ballot measure for next year. And then have the voters, have you, say, are you willing to provide the necessary revenue to maintain services at the current level, or do we live within our means? That'll be your decision. We are here as your stewards of your taxpayer dollars, and so we will do your will. Getting through 18 is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we're working through it. So with that, Mr. Gimmel.
I just wanted to point out, and I know most of you already realize this, but, you know, it's heartening to see the folks from Scope come in here, and we're going to have folks that come in for the different agencies, and that's a good thing. But especially with the law enforcement, you know, one of the things that the board has been very diligent is it's a system. And Commissioner French says that 75% of the general fund goes to a system. Everything that happens in one part of that system affects the others. For instance, we'd love to hire 35 more deputies, which would mean that we're going to have a lot more folks in the jail, which means that the already overburdened prosecuting attorneys and the public defenders will either have to have people, or we all remember what catch and release was. You bring them in, I have no place to put them, I turn around and let them go. Okay? And that's kind of the challenge here, is that it's a system. If it's like a water bed, if you push down here, it goes up over here, and that's what we have to be conscious of. And it isn't that, you know, extra deputies aren't important, but extra deputies affect the whole system and vice versa.
Okay, so I'm going to be a little challenged with the last name. I believe the first name is Mark, and I'm not really capable of reading the last name. It starts with an M, I think. Okay, very good. Yeah. Legal counsel?
Pardon?
You represent that you provided legal counsel?
Yeah, I sat in that chair for 4 years.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner
I just wanted to make sure I had the right Mark.
You do.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So, Mark
And I'll-
Munich,
Okay.
retired. I probably bring a different view of this whole thing, having served as a city attorney for 17 years before I joined the prosecutor's rank. And as a deputy city, or as the city attorney, I had to do this every year, prepare a budget. And every year we had to cut back. And considering we did the prosecution for the city, that became harder all the time. It's a revolving circle, and I appreciate what you guys are going through, because it's a mess in this state. But today I learned that this year so far we have provided 52,000 hours of service to this county of Spokane. If we're not here to do it, and he can't afford to have us around anymore, he's going to have to assign deputies to take them off the road to do what we do, and that's going to be a mess. So I speak from experience similar to what you guys have. I just never had to make the final decision. But as I can say, my sympathies are with you. But I had a mayor that once said, and a very wise mayor, if we don't fund the people who go out and protect the people, then we aren't going to be around anymore. And I think that message, rings strong with you guys and with most elected officials. And as everybody's been saying, public safety is issue one. But that number one has impacts on, like I say, the judges, the jail, and everything. But that should be the main funding. So I won't use my 3 minutes. I just thought I'd bring some experienced comments to you.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Good to see you again.
Okay, the next person I have signed up is David Morris.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me? Oh, you had to leave. Okay. Next person I have then is Bill Newman.
Hi, I am Bill Newman. I'm a resident of Spokane, and I'm president of Scope South. Scope is the sheriff's community-oriented policing effort. We're all volunteers. I'm going to talk a little bit about Scope South, but I'm going to be talking about Scope in general as well. We assist the sheriff's department in many, many ways. We help with traffic control and parades and fairs. We do so many different things. We help with latent fingerprinting, abandoned vehicles, radar patrols, so many different things. There's about probably 20 different things that we do. I also work in the Valley Mall. As a matter of fact, I work with David Morris every Thursday afternoon. And I work there assisting in the crime prevention office with Venus Morris as well. And I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, but I just got to get this across. I do my part. They do their part. We are all volunteers. We help in many, many ways. I am also not only a SCOPE member and work in the Valley Mall, but I'm also a CERT member. Part of my group just got called out of here a few minutes ago. You heard the beeps. We are on call 24/7 when we're on duty. I've been to many, many different events. I've been to fires. I've been to power outages. I've been to major traffic accidents, and unfortunately I've been to several homicides. One being Freeman High School. I was there serving until 2:30 in the morning. You know, I do my part, they do their part. The sheriff does his part. We're there to support him because he's undermanned, underfunded, right now. First thing I think about when I'm replacing an officer standing in, some remote area is the fact that I have released that officer to go somewhere, and maybe he's going to be the guy that shows up when somebody's trying to rob my kid's house or my house, or he's going to be there to protect my grandchildren. I've been to many, many events, and I've been to several meetings. I'm sorry.
Go ahead and wrap up.
I've been to several meetings with Sheriff Kay, and I know he puts in a lot of hours. I know Rick, my director, puts in a lot of hours. They probably do 16-hour days most days, but there's just a lot of need out there. So I, as a in Scope South, we are actually covering not just the South Hill. We cover from Highway 27 to 195, clear south to the end of the county. We have a large area. There's only 7 of us. We're totally understaffed. But guess what? There's only one sheriff to cover that whole territory. We need help. Safety is our priority. That's one of the things they always talk about. The President of the United States is, I've got to protect the country. Well, you guys have to help the sheriff protect us. I'm old. There's probably 2 years ago there was 500 Scope people. Today there's 350. Unfortunately, there's a lot of gray hair out here, and we're dying off. Yeah. We have no choice on that. But my family and my family and my friends are my priority. So I do everything I can. I know Ozzie and his staff are doing everything they can. And we expect you guys to do what you can, do everything you can, because our safety is paramount. Without safety, we have nothing. We don't have parks. We can't have stores because, how many times do stores get robbed and everything at night because there's just not enough presence of police there. We need them, and I hate to say it, but, my name is Bill Newman, a homeowner, a taxpayer, and a voter. And I have a lot of friends with similar attitudes that I have. And I know they do, they think the same way too. We need help, and we expect you to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person I have signed up is Neil Sullivan.
It's great, though. Commissioner French and Commissioner Kearns, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I am a scope member, obviously, of the University District. I do what they call citizen on patrol. And what we do is we pair up and we go around our district area, and usually we can go the whole county. And what we get to do is we get to listen what's going on, because they give us a police radio that we can push a button if we get in trouble or call if we get in trouble. But we get to listen to it because we want to stay out of the way of what's going on, okay? But I listen to it from the perspective of who's going out on that call who doesn't have a backup. It happens a lot. Because they just do not, they are already busy in multiple places all at once, and I'm only listening to South Radio, not North, okay? And so I have seen the kind of activity that occurs. I work the station on the weekends, on Saturday, and I get complaints from the citizens that they have had property stolen from them, they have had whatever, and they don't get any response. And they call. I have had more people talk to me about calling crime, what am I trying to say?
Crime check.
Yeah, crime check, anyway. And tell us that they are not getting any response from the police even after calling crime check. So, and it's usually about stolen property or vehicle prowl. So what I do is I go and make our patrol car present. So hopefully they see us and see the patrol car. And I hope that we're helping out the county by preventing some of the crime. So I look at us as we'll just patrol. We don't know how many things we stop, but I can tell you I've seen a lot of pairs not stop doing what they were doing and get in their cars and drive home, drive away, because we're there. My story is related to you because I'm a first-hand listener and a first-hand person that provides volunteer opportunities for myself and others. And I do multiple things for them. I do latent prints, I do school patrol, I do radar, I do COP, and I have just been starting training in the mail, delivering the mail to picking up the mail and making sure it gets to the court in time in the morning. Okay, so that's what I volunteer to do, and I enjoy doing it. And I hope that what we do as a group is valuable to you. But I'm here not because of scope. I think we're safe because of what we do. We're very valuable. I am here because of the reduction of the proposed reduction of the budget for the sheriff. And I, as a citizen and a taxpayer, et cetera, I want you to know that several of us and myself have the opinion that public safety, sheriff's department is number one in the priority scheme. And just one more thing about the lawn mowing. I was a CFO for Portland Public Schools in my last 4 years of working school districts. That school district stopped mowing lawns 10 years before I even got there. And every lawn in the entire district looked crappy. And every fall, before school started, all the citizens would come out and make the grounds look better. Free. But I'm just saying, what's the impact of saying we don't mow the lawns? It might be just a little pea pod, but I'll tell you, it makes a perspective difference to the public
if you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just kind of a follow-up, I think I mentioned last week, or maybe in the hearing before that, that in one of the previous rounds of reductions, our neighborhood parks, the county could no longer take care of them. And so we do rely on neighbors to take care of the park. They do the mowing, they do the maintenance, they do all of that. And so, it is about community and taking care of each other. The next person I have signed up is, I think it's Mark Porter. Have a winner.
Good evening, sir. I live in the county. I'm a voter. I've lived in here, county outside of Cheney for 40 years. I'm a retired police detective from Spokane. Currently working for another large government law enforcement agency. I can't fathom how we could cut the sheriff's department budget when they're at 0.6 deputies per 1,000. Sheriff Knezovich the other day said they should be at 2.5% or officers per 1,000. That's scary. I realize even if you had 10 times the amount of deputies, you can't expect an immediate response a lot. I have a son that has a wife with 2 infants down in Spangle, and 3 times they've had prowlers when she's been home alone, the wife, and took an hour to get a deputy there. And I realize, having been in law enforcement and still am, things happen. You have calls that are higher priority even than a prowler. I asked the sheriff for some talking points so I could make some relevant points here. He mentioned that the average mileage per vehicle on their patrol cars is 150,000 miles. To me, that's really scary. Could you imagine, hate to imagine how fast the deputies and everybody else that went to the horrible Freeman shooting were going. But I could just imagine a failure on some part of one of those patrol cars, not alone the deputy being killed or seriously injured, but innocent people traveling the opposite direction perhaps. That's really scary. You did mention, Commissioner French, that there were some departments that may not be cut. Probably some very good reasons for that, but maybe you can look at that. Personally, I'm working in retirement, so I'm not rolling in money, but I'd be willing to pay a little higher tax to keep the sheriffs funded. I was reading where they lost, 34 deputies in the past. They're looking at 8 to 15 now, if this happens. Having gone through budget cuts with the state, who I work for now, as well as the city, potential budget cuts, when people are faced with that frequently, they go, why the heck should I stay around here and face this next year or the year after that? Or why should I apply for that department? And I know it's happened, be out of a job in 9 months when out of necessity. So, I think there was one other point. I would just really urge you to do everything you can not to cut their budget. It's, with terrorism, I'm retired from 32 years military, active in reserves, where I did counterintelligence and anti-terrorism. So in my mind, we have that potential here. As we know, obviously Freeman was domestic terrorism, but the terrorists want to attack soft targets, and it's going to happen eventually. Please support the Sheriff's Department as much as you can. One recommendation, maybe we can draw in other businesses from out of state, increase your revenue. I'd be happy to volunteer time in any such endeavors, but we need to increase your revenue so you don't have to go through this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person I have signed up is Scott Ellsworth.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Scott Ellsworth. I was born and raised in Elk, Washington. I've lived there most of my life. I come to you tonight not really with any good answers to the current budget. I have watched your guys' YouTube videos. I have read the budget. I'm not an accountant. I have trouble with my own checking account. So I don't have any good answers for you in that retrospect. But like everybody else here, I'm imploring you about the public safety. It should be number one and always should be number one. I know a little bit about public safety. I was a deputy sheriff myself for 10 years down in Whitman County. I was also a police officer. I was also a corrections officer, and I've been a firefighter and an EMT. So you can say pretty much public safety has been in my blood since I was 18 years old. So I do know what you're talking about, how it does take time to get an officer on the streets in that retrospect. But you can imagine my surprise that I was a little disheartened that I found out that there's one deputy maybe in Elk at any given time. Granted, Elk is not the metropolis of Spokane, and we don't have the crime per se, but when it comes to public safety, that bothers me a lot. I know quite a few of the deputies that are on the department, and they are frustrated just as everybody else is with the lack of funding and everything else. I understand the loss of revenue that the county experienced over the last 10 years with the city annexing the north end with the Costco and the whole 9 yards, and I know why Costco is now moving back out of the county, so hopefully that will bring some revenue back to the county budget. And I'm not going to blame you. I'm not going to blame anybody else about the lack of money, because I have no great ideas to solve this. Once again, I'm here just strictly to implore you, just like pretty much everybody else is, that the sheriff's office basically has to be number one. The justice system has to be number one. We need to be able to catch these criminals. We need to be able to prosecute them, put them in the jail, serve their time. I want to thank all the SCOPE members that are here. I was a reserve deputy for 10 years. I donated thousands and thousands of hours of my own time. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars of my own money buying my own duty belts and doing all this and watching my sheriff work on a shoestring budget. So they are helping us, helping the county greatly by deterring crime. People see a patrol car, they just see a patrol car. They have no idea whether it's a SCOPE volunteer or an actual deputy. But to even remotely think about cutting that budget is crazy. So I want to thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person I have signed up is John Dunlop.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for listening to us. I'm John Dunlop. I am captain of the local sheriff's posse. So I live out near Mount Spokane, at the base of Mount Spokane. And before I start to say other things, I'd like to thank Commissioner French for our discussions at the SME picnic. I learned what you did, and when I did, I more than thought your salary and the increase was very well justified. Thank you for that, all your service. And Commissioner Kearns, thank you for the recent presentation and participation at the Hirsch Water Rights. That's very important to all of us, and we appreciate your support. I support you as a member of the Sheriff's SCOPE group, and as a part of the SCOPE group, the Mounted Patrol goes out into the rural areas, it goes into the parks, it goes into the urban areas, and we are the kinder, gentler face of the sheriff's office. We go into also the urban areas, and for example, the recent fair, and we bring goodwill to the county, I think goodwill to the sheriff's office, and we're proud and honored to do that. We support the sheriff's office with our horses, with our tack, with our feed, with our trucks, with our trailers. We bring a lot, as well as our own uniforms and, of course, our time. And we're honored to do that. We appreciate that opportunity to serve the county. And what I'd like to bring to you is a request that you consider funding the sheriff's office in the same way that the Salary Commission looked at your salaries. It was fair and it was right. And if we look at that average, we're looking at tripling, not cutting, the Sheriff's Department budget. I know that's very difficult, but if public safety, and I urge you to think of public safety over just law enforcement, the old version of public safety is really our number one goal, which I hope it is, and I think we heard from many people that it is, then that should be our first funding effort. And then everything comes a little bit after that. And I heard very clearly the funding gap. And I don't know, I don't understand government well enough to offer a solution, but in other places, people have kind of refused to fund the mandates that weren't funded, that got dropped on you, the Hirsch decision, these other decisions that we provide some kind of legal support out of the county budget. Perhaps we put a cap on that, or perhaps it takes a long time if you want the county to pay for a public defender. I've heard this on the news, and I wanted to suggest that. So we have a series of priorities, and if public safety is number one, perhaps that's the one we want to fund first. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, sir. So, next speaker is Andrew Stockman.
Good evening, gentlemen and clerk. I'm just going to follow up with what I commented on last week. I'd like to state my name's Andrew Stockman. I'm a citizen of Spokane County. I am an employee of the Sheriff's Office. I'd like to state the vision statement as it's stated for the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. Quote, your Spokane County Sheriff's Office consistently invests available resources toward community-wide safety and security, economic viability, and the positive nationwide reputation of our county. We do so by providing a highly trained, dedicated team of professionals working in partnership with our community through utilizing their unique talents and skills in conjunction with new technology and research-based criminal justice training, end quote. In my opinion, for many years, the Sheriff's Office has done more with less, and now less with less, to fulfill this vision for the citizens of Spokane County. In order to continue to survive, it is essential that the Sheriff's Office address the following challenges: retaining the professionals they currently have, hiring new quality recruits, and maintaining and/or increasing adequate coverage for all areas of the county. Budget cuts would make overcoming these challenges almost impossible. 10 years ago, the patrol division was fully staffed. Additionally, there were competitive career appointments for patrol deputies in various investigative units: Property Crimes Task Force, Investigative Task Force, Regional Drug Task Force, Auto Theft Task Force, tonight the Domestic Violence Consortium, and the Career Criminal Unit, with 2 to 3 deputies deep in some of those areas. Those positions offered opportunities for patrol deputies to leave the road and gain valuable experience, training, and develop new skills, and use their unique talents to serve the community. Deputies in those units expanded the intelligence-led policing influence of the Sheriff's Office to continually target and hold criminals accountable, undoubtedly a benefit to our citizens. As I mentioned, this was the case 10 years ago. However, due to previous budget cuts over the years, these units were whittled away and now operate at or below minimum staffing. In the patrol division, as was mentioned last week and on the Sheriff's Office Facebook page, this means only 9 deputies are on duty at any given time in the unincorporated areas where I currently work. There are not enough bodies to adequately cover patrol districts in some cases. This could affect members of the public if one day a personal crisis occurs and you're in desperate need of service. You may have to wait a little longer for help to arrive because of staffing shortages, especially, as was mentioned by other people, some of the scope volunteers, if there are multiple incidents occurring. No one in our county should have their safety compromised. Short staffing also results in deputies not being denied time off. They're also often asked to come in on days off to work extra 12-hour overtime shifts. This does create a physical and or emotional toll on deputies and their families. When they're overworked, they're unable to have quality time away, and they may look to other agencies which are better staffed and may offer other benefits and opportunities. I realize my time is up. I'm going to finish up. We've already lost some deputies with many years of experience who have found jobs elsewhere, taking their experience and assets with them, which is a great loss to our agency and community. In my opinion, further cuts to the Sheriff's Office budget will reduce the ability to hire new deputies and retain talented professionals already serving our agency and the citizens of Spokane County with distinction. There will be a lot of strain in an already short-staffed department and reduce minimal coverage even further. Ultimately, the budget cuts will have a negative impact on the safety, security, and the economic viability of Spokane County. Appreciate the opportunity to address the commission.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker I have is Kat Campbell.
Thank you for your time this evening. I am Kat Campbell. I am currently the president of Scope Edgecliff. That was the first Scope office to open up. I want to point out that we do enjoy national recognition through DOJ for our program, and unfortunately, as far as I know, it's the only one like it in the country. And I'd like to be a part of expanding so that other counties and other states can enjoy the assistance to the Sheriff's Office like we have. I myself have been in corrections and law enforcement for over 21 years as a paid employee in California, Idaho, and Washington. 6.5 years ago, I took a voluntary layoff from the Department of Corrections, where I worked at Scope Edgecliff as a Department of Corrections, Community Corrections Officer, known to my offenders as a probation officer or PO, and that gave me the opportunity to become a volunteer. We partnered with the Sheriff's Office, Scope Office volunteers at that time. If I had violent or either domestic violence, murderers, sex offenders, whatever, that came onto my caseload and came into our community, I shared that information with our volunteers so that we could partner in the way that we provide safety in the community. When somebody in the office got a phone call saying, Joe is across the street is doing this, it seems strange to me, should I wonder, should I worry? Then we were able to work better with our community citizens in the local area to provide for safety. We have right now in our budget, or in our coffers, approximately $3,000 that we have raised through fundraisers, a lot of which we've spent, of course, many hours of our own time, much of our own money in donations to put on these fundraisers. And we use the money from those fundraisers to go back into the local community to help needy families, to help with events such as National Night Out. We put on an annual picnic every year that's free to our local neighbors. And a lot of the food and such is provided for by donations from our own volunteers. We buy our own uniforms, we spend our own money for gas, we drive our own vehicles like I did tonight to come to meetings and trainings and things like that, like are happening tonight. We do Project Warm Up. Some of our volunteers use yarn from the YMCA, and they have a knit and chat program where they create clothing for the needy and the homeless, all the way through to Operation Family ID. What an honor it is to be able to hand a disc to a family and say, your child's photo and fingerprints and data are on this. If you give it to an officer, if they ever go missing, Amber Alert will go up all across the state and sometimes beyond within minutes. You never know how many lives you may have saved already, and we appreciate everything that the Sheriff's Office employees have done, and we enjoy the opportunity to support them in any way possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I want to say before we go to the next speaker, to all the Scope volunteers, I get it. I used to be a cop shop volunteer when I was with the city. I was the lead for building the Navawood Cop Shop there on Addison and Wellesley, and started that whole effort with the cop shop because I had gangs. I lived across the street from a city park, and we had gangs taking over the park late at night, and the neighborhood decided it was enough, and we had to take over the control of the own park in our own neighborhood and stuff. So I get it, and you provide an incredible service to this community, and without the service that you do, neither the sheriff or the rest of the criminal justice system could work as effectively as it does. So I just want to make sure that you understand how much I appreciate the time and effort that you take to make sure that the community is safe. You are invaluable to this community and its safety. So just want to put that on the record. Karen Gallion.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. One thing about coming up towards the end is that everybody's already hit my points. Mr. French, Commissioner French, how long have you been a county commissioner?
This is my 7th year.
Very good. I understand why you would like a raise. I worked for a Fortune 50 company out in Liberty Lake for 17 years, and this has already, before I came in, I could equate what I saw in that company to what I feel is happening with the county commissioners. I mean, if the mean average for household is $47,000, and you guys are making $119,000, I mean, our CEO came in on a helicopter to New Jersey and landed in just to go to work every day. I understand that you've been in the position for a long time, but some of the most humility leadership that gets people to remember you forever because of the steps you've taken is to take sacrifices. $119,000, I got on disability 3 years ago, which really limits my abilities of the 17 years I was in Scope, because I'm now on a set budget. I don't have the opportunity nor the energy anymore to go out and make more money. But I don't see this crystal palace up there needing to be set like it is when people's lives are at stake. If people are coming in at $100,000, how much did you make before you got here?
Ma'am, please stay on target. The goal is not to try and target.
I'm sorry. The point is, if people who are new getting into a $100,000 job that's making more the bills that you've probably got if you're spending wisely, that is a great $100,000 job. I made $20,000 maybe, and that was at the Fortune 50 company, while the CEO is doing all this other stuff. Ed Kirsch, he also talked to me about municipal bonds. are we in a position that we could ask for bonds? Bond money. Can you sell bonds as the county commissioners?
Yes, we can. No, we won't. You would not mortgage your house to pay for your utility bill. That's bad money management. The county is not going to bond to pay for our utility bill. That's bad money management. And one of the things that we have worked real hard to do while I've been here is to make sure that we can maintain our credit rating so that when we do go out to the bond market for capital projects, buildings and other capital assets, we have a good credit rating. And so we've worked real hard to be able to maintain the highest credit rating a county our size can get and stuff. But to suggest that incurring debt, that might solve your problem for 1 year, that's not a long-term strategy. We would not do that here no more than you would mortgage your house to pay your electric bill. That's just not good money management.
Okay,
So,
thanks for your time.
thank you. Next person I have is Andy Hoke. Did I get it right? Hoke. Wow, thank you.
My name is Andy Hoke, and I thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. Am I allowed to put a picture on this? I'm here tonight because this is talking about cuts to our sheriff's department is a personal issue for me. This is what lives next door to me. He's a known felon, criminal, drug dealer, convicted, and he terrorizes our neighborhood. I've met with you, Josh, on creating a nuisance abatement ordinance, which Spokane County, as you're aware of, does not have. So people like this know how to work the system, go through the, just remain in the system, and know that there are no consequences for his horrible actions. It's really ironic to me that tonight somebody was here speaking about domestic violence, and that one of the proclamations you made here was to advocate for domestic violence, because this person was, I had to call 911 one night because he was beating his girlfriend. I could hear her screaming. I could hear everything loud and clear. I could hear him saying he's going to hit her and he's going to keep hitting her. I called 911. Nothing, no response. For another half hour, she became very quiet. I called back a half hour later saying, I think she's really hurt, she's possibly dead. It's very quiet over there. 2 hours from that point, 2.5 hours from the initial call, the police came. And I do not blame the sheriff's department. I blame that they are stretched so thin. All the calls that we make on this house, it has been explained to us. We have to prioritize our calls. We're stretched so thin. A girl getting beaten is not a priority. It's not a priority call because they're stretched so thin. Again, I don't blame the sheriff's department. Just to imagine cutting the budget to the department is, I take that very personally. I live next door to this every day. Every day we deal with something at this house. This is a personal issue. You cannot allow the budget to be cut for public protection. You just can't. And I understand that you say that the state governs or allows money for that. You guys have your hands in this too. You have asked Ozzy to submit a budget of what it will look like to cut his department. And it's just not, it's not fair. It leaves us feeling unprotected, vulnerable, and terrified I'm actually terrified because these people that are coming and going from this house all the time are motioning to us and giving us dirty looks and yelling at us, and police are not able to respond. What if that had been one of us in our neighborhood being beaten by him or one of the people that are coming and going from his house, and we get 2.5 hours till we get help? That's inexcusable. Thank you for allowing me to talk tonight.
Good, thank you. And again, the 7.5% was asked of all the departments. We're not targeting the sheriff's department. We're not targeting any specific department within the county. It's just a first blush at, what does that look like? And then we'll come back and we'll apply a prioritization based upon the hearings and try and shift funds to be able to make sure that we meet the priorities of the community. That's the process. You've got to have a starting point. We'll get a starting point, and then we'll backfill where we can. And so, thank you. Next person I have signed up is Brian Hoke.
Thank you for your time, guys. Appreciate the budget transparency policy. Thank you for letting us be involved in this. As a Dave Ramsey follower, I appreciate living within your means, really do. I think it's important, though, to not consider cutting the sheriff's department. I don't know if you guys have ever called 911 or Crime Check. We unfortunately have several times. Hopefully you've had a good response. I've come to learn that if you call on the weekend, they will not respond. They're too busy elsewhere. And we do not, as you saw, we do not leave our house without our phone. So we can make a phone call to Crime Check or 911 if we feel threatened or see something. But it is sad to know as I'm walking out my son's girlfriend that I have to live like this. As Josh was nice enough, Mr. Kearns, I apologize, was nice enough to listen to us and then drive by the situation we live in. I really appreciate that. We do not live in a bad neighborhood. We live near Meade High School. This is in the neighborhood where kids are coming and going from school. And to realize that when you do call 911, they might not be there, it's scary. And to consider cutting the sheriff's department would be just disastrous. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next person I have is Jill Patrick. Jill still here? Okay. Rick Scott.
Thanks again, Commissioner French and Commissioner Kearns. Thanks for allowing us to speak, and hopefully through the night here, and it's been quite a long night. I'm not sure how long your meetings usually go, but thanks again. So I wrote a bunch of notes, and I just said, it's really, after hearing a lot of the other volunteers speak on the concerns, again, a lot of them are the same as what I've had being a citizen and voter and taxpayer in Spokane County. I was raised here, born here, Spokane. One of the things is I think our volunteers, I don't know what our normal bedtime is, but mine's getting really close here. So, I was a victim, property crime victim. It wasn't as horrendous as our young lady over here and some of the others. But many of our volunteers for Scope have been victims of crime in some way or the other. And that's why I joined Scope, 20 years ago. I was a victim, wanted to help our community be a better and safer community. So I got involved in the Edgecliff Scope station there. That community, as you may have heard a little bit earlier, had one of the highest crime rates per capita in all of Spokane County. With the Department of Justice grant we received, the Weed and Seed grant, we came in, we had some funding there to bring in extra law enforcement, extra duty. Department of Corrections was a partner. We had the prosecutors were one of our partners too. I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of tired here. But what the big thing we did is with the Scope volunteers there and these other partners there is we unified that community. There's folks in there who would not get out of their home. There's a lot of elderly folks at the time I moved in. They would not get, you wouldn't see anybody out on the streets after it got dark at all. Because there was a lot of crime and there was bullies and adult bullies, people breaking in and people, just assaulting people. It was really something to see that with a bit of funding, and again, it's funding here is probably our initial deal here, a bit of funding, help from somebody else, and it was federal help and local help and different grants, that we were able to unify a community and empower the citizens there to take their community back. We had several Walk for Success parades going through there when we could, and when we had a lot of volunteers and neighbors would walk through the neighborhood and really celebrate the success of bringing that community together. That community, even though I consider it as a fairly low-income community still, has less crime rates than many other areas now in the county. And I still think it's because the citizens there have, been empowered to take back their community. So one of the big things there, we do, just on closing that really quickly then, one of the things I want to also, I know this is a really tough decision on the county and everyone who's involved in this. I know we only have a certain amount of money, but I would really, and I've heard it a bit tonight, really encourage and support your commissioners to take it to the voters, to at least see how they feel. We're just a small portion, but a big portion of this room here the last couple of weeks. Bring it to us and say, are you willing to pay for the services? I think I ran into that. I'm also Water District Commissioner. We tried to keep everything down in our poor community there, the rates down. And then we got to a point where if we would have had a pump or something like that go out, we would have been, basically bankrupt. And we brought it to the community, and the community came, and they said, why didn't you tell us this before? We would have supported, gradual, incremental raises, and they would have been all right on that instead of having to maybe increase it in a large amount. So I know it's a tough decision. We support all other groups, like Scraps was here with Nancy and Greater Spokane Substance Abuse Council. We're working with Safe Kids. We have a lot of different community programs we're involved in too for safety. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So the next person I have, sorry, Mr. Gimmel.
I really appreciate how much time everybody's taking to come out here. One of the things that, to tag on to the gentleman's statement, is this is also an opportunity for us to educate the folks that live in the county about a broken business model, basically, is what we're operating in. And we will have people, for instance, will say, well, the city can do, seems not to have financial difficulties or whatever. And both Commissioner French and I work for the city. They're great folks, and they take good care of the tax money, but it is a different system. For instance, if they, not to be too dramatic, if they decide that they want 10 police officers, they can raise your utility tax without a vote and just pay for them. We don't have utility tax. We don't have business tax. We've got two basic funding streams. One of them is limited at 1%. The other one has been incorporated and annexed pretty much away, and that's the sales tax. Now, we're not complaining about it. It's just the hand that we have to be, dealt with. But through these interactions and the transparency, we're hoping that our citizens, and everybody in the county is our citizen, understands this is a different, in my opinion, a broken business model that we hope to go out and say to the folks, would you be willing to help us fix this?
Thank you, sir. Next person I have signed up is Mike Mahoney. So I have 3 more sheets of speakers that have signed up. So if there's anybody else that would like to speak tonight, fill out one of these and get it to the clerk, or come up and speak afterwards and then fill it up after you're done. Otherwise, that's what we're looking at for tonight. So just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we have ahead of us. So, Mr. Mahoney.
Thank you. My name is Michael Mahoney. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a registered voter and taxpayer since in the county since 1979. Joined Scope a few years ago to educate myself on cleaning up my neighborhood. Some neighbors that had domestic violence and drug abuse. I believe that the thought of a budget cut to the Sheriff's Department is quite frightening, more than public speaking. Just one quick story. The last winter, I was at our CV office shoveling some snow, and patrol car pulled up, and he was spinning his tires and stuff coming into the driveway. He got out, and we were talking about the weather and the traffic conditions and stuff, and in passing, he mentioned that he felt safer in his personal car than he did his patrol car. And that, I think of that every time I think or hear about any kind of budget cuts. I just want to share that with you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Person I have signed up is Cassandra Silva.
I see you guys get browbeat all night long. I feel bad because I'm only going to add to it. You'll have to forgive me if I speak quickly. The longer I'm up here, the scarier this gets instead of the other way around. You know, in speaking of attracting revenue to our county, we won't get that if we turn into Baghdad. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to visit the Middle East anytime soon. So it's just a thought. Likewise, I wanted to mention the personal strain on our officers, because when they can't make a call, it is personal. And that can break them as people, and they are people. I wanted you to realize that. In opening on the budget cuts, I want to say you can't expect to cut one program or the other and not see one or the other have to carry the load or bear the costs for it. And you're talking about crippling both law enforcement and animal control and rescue now. I heard about the scraps deal here just recently. I don't know a lot about it yet. As stewards of our city as a whole, I would expect more from you in understanding the organizations you want to cut and realize how interdependent they really are and the lives you're considering putting on the line. Without the services, for instance, that Scraps provides, the officers will be called out to handle dog encounters they're not equipped to handle. And this will lead to increased pet shootings that in turn feed those looking for an excuse to target our officers' lives. Our officers cannot respond to calls as is due to budget cuts. How long will it be before a dog running loose kills a child, or kills a blind or otherwise disabled handler or their service dog? We have a lot of attacks on service dogs of recent. Because as an organization that at the head, that you cripple those two most powerful services standing between us and harm's way. Are you going to explain to that parent why their child's dead or maimed for life when that happens? It will. The bigger we get, the more likely that becomes. Are you going to explain it to the blind man's family or the officer's family that your cuts caused their turmoil? We're just starting to see a controlled eradication of diseases from the benefits provided by Scraps. Drop them, and rabies, as well as the Black Plague, along with feline AIDS and leukemia, will become a strong reality. You also will put public health at risk, not just our safety anymore. You'll also give animal abusers a free ticket to brutalize people's pets and get away with it. We already have seen this problem on the South Hill. There has for years been someone targeting people's cats, mutilating them. I knew a guy and was one of the victims. They keep repeatedly dropping them on their doorstep. But law enforcement can't do anything there. Their hands are tied, much like your hands seem to be tied on some of these issues. If you cut these programs, you hurt us all, but most of all, you condemned innocent animals to slow, painful deaths, be it diseases or starvation or abuse. You'll inadvertently encourage people's apathy, making them comfortable seeing suffering and turning their backs to it. It's a proven fact that this breeds violent offenders by giving them the easy access necessary when neither scraps nor our officers can stop it due to cuts. We can't control speeds in school zones now. We can't protect our kids, be it in schools or our pets in our yards, but cutting them now means we might as well be pulling the trigger ourselves before the misery really begins. Because I don't want to be the one making the house call, be it to the 4-year-old or the officer who lost their life or the parent who loses their child in the next school shooting. Do you? I wanted to thank you for, you guys go through a lot. And I know you're in a rock and a hard place. You explained that to me, and reaching the community has been really difficult. I'm really grateful for what I learned here. It is through these problems, getting me involved in Scope, that I'm here, and now that makes me want to know more about your job. What do you face? Because without tools, I can't offer you any legitimate source of anything. All I can do is complain. I don't want to be the complainer. I want to help you succeed, to help us succeed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Eva Waddell.
Thank you so very much. My name is Eva Waddell. I've lived in Spokane County my whole life, and I guess I'm really concerned right now why I don't see a representative representing our District 2. I don't understand the whole process. And so I would just hope that as commissioners, as public servants, that there could be greater transparency concerning the budget. I tried to go on the agenda and it mentioned that there were like presentations on the history of budgets and things like that. I could not find them anyplace. And I'm a very well-educated person, trying to research, trying to stay informed, and I don't know how people in District 2 are being informed currently. I'm really concerned about public safety. We have seen a huge increase in our neighborhood in the Spokane Valley of graffiti, of people dealing drugs out of their homes. And when we call Crime Check and 911, there's only so much they can do, so they're not able to respond to all the calls. Right now, they're understaffed greatly by 20 to 40 people, and I know that there's many complications with that. You mentioned that training costs a lot. It takes a lot of time. I understand that. But the problem is a lot of people don't want to become a police officer. Right now, they're underpaid. They're overworked. In some cases, they're even undervalued. And I think it's a really big shortcoming that we weren't asked as taxpayers, as voters, to vote on the decision about increasing property taxes. Because I don't want to take my daughter to Terrace View Park if we don't feel safe. There was a potential child luring in the area, and we could walk to the park, but we would choose not to because we don't feel protected. And I know it's not the police's fault. We have many quality deputies leaving to other departments, other jobs, because they can make $20,000 more in a different area and be better supported when they're not overworked with the overtime. So I would really implore you to not assume what citizens want. and just thinking about how they would vote regarding increased property taxes. For me, our safety in our community is priceless, and myself and our neighbors would pay more to be able to have that peace of mind. And I know it's a big decision, but I would just encourage you to really have transparency, and I would like more information as a District 2 citizen, and just to know more about your budget and proposed budget cuts.
Very good. Thank you. Next speaker is Greg Marston, and then Brad Littlefield, and that will complete the list that I have.
Hello, I'm here because I have a very good friend that's in Scope. I know the hundreds of hours he donates to the city and to the county, and I hope you can find the way to fund it. To piggyback on what the lady before me just said, you said that our primary funding source is property taxes. Well, I know from personal experience, nothing messes up your property taxes any worse than a crime rate. I moved here about 3 years ago from another state that didn't value police, had lots of other places to put money, and you know, over the course of the years, even though I didn't go into risky areas, I was twice robbed at gunpoint. Moved to Spokane when I retired, and we absolutely love it here. We absolutely love it here. I live about 8 miles down 195 from the 90, so I'm not a long ways away. But I talked to a deputy who told me that where we are, it would be best case an hour, probably more like 2 or 3 hours before somebody could get to us if we had a problem. And so I said, so what does that mean? He says, that means for an hour to 3 hours, you're on your own. Now, I don't do victim real well. And so, much to my surprise, at the ripe old age of 67, I went out and I bought a handgun and I bought a shotgun. I've paid for professional training so that I know how to use them effectively and what the law is regarding it. I've paid for insurance for it, and I don't have it here tonight, but I carry it with me everywhere I go, knowing full well that if I ever had to use it, I'm probably putting my family's net worth at risk, that I'll get ground up in the legal system, but if that's what I have to do to protect my wife and children, that's what I'm going to do. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I'd be having that conversation at this age in my life. I absolutely, wholeheartedly support and I don't like taxes any better than the next person does. But I really hate the idea that somehow we've gotten into a box to where we can't afford to have the police to defend us. And I think if you did the math on what would it cost to get our 2.7 ratio or 2.5 ratio or whatever the normal amount is supposed to be, go to the voters saying this money will go absolutely to this and nothing else, I think you'd find a friendly audience. Because frankly, I'd love to leave my gun locked up at home, but right now I don't feel safe doing it. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner?
Yes, Mr. Gimmel.
For the young lady that couldn't find any of the information, before you leave, I'll show you on the website where all of this is. You're welcome.
Littlefield, welcome.
Ready?
I'm ready.
I'm Brad Littlefield. I live on 12021 East Broadway in the Valley. I've been here about 14 months. About 3 months after I bought my place, I got broke into and robbed. Grew up in Sandpoint, Idaho. Spokane was always a magical place. It was the service center for the Inland Empire. Everything we needed for logging and mining, we came to Spokane to buy. You guys got fat on us. There's no question about that. My wife's happy here. I'm like the last fellow that spoke. I'm wondering what in the hell am I doing here? I moved to Wenatchee in 2000. I retired as an assistant division manager from DNR. I spent 4 years in Olympia. I know where some of this stuff comes from, and I'll tell you what I'm leaving here with tonight. I'm leaving here with your comments about if we ramp this up, we'd have to buy more prosecutors, we'd have to buy more defense people, and we'd have to put in a bigger jail to be able to take care of you people. That's what I'm leaving with. And I'm wondering, I'm mad as hell. I'm wondering what in the hell you guys are doing to try to make this better and to fix it. Instead of sitting back and saying, well, we don't want to go out and raise anybody's taxes. We can't spend money. Well, you've got to. And I'm a very conservative person. I told you I came from Sandpoint. That's about as conservative as you can get. Because I'll tell you this, that I've believed since I moved to Washington. One of my neighbors in Chelan County told me this. He said, the only Republicans we have in Washington are cheap Democrats. That's why you're so confused. But I've heard also Ozzy's take on the legislator from Pugetropolis, and we know that 5 counties in this state elect everybody and run the state, right? Even Peter Goldmark lost his own home county. But they think you can just spend a little more money because they have tons of money over there. They live in a bubble. But we've lost our business and industries. We've lost the aluminum. There was 3 companies here that built semi-trailers, plus all of the other businesses that went on. So now you've got a lot of retired people, and you've got a lot of poor people that grew up here that don't have jobs. That's what it amounts to. It's the same thing in Sandpoint. We used to have 5 sawmills in our county. It's just all gone. Got filled up with Californians. But that really upset me that you said that, because that just locks in with what the people in Pugetropolis say. You need to fix it. I looked through your budget thing, looked at the personnel like in the assessor's office. All of the reporting on the property sales comes through in the state of Washington. It has to be reported to them. It goes into a computer, it gets modeled. You should have that department with half of the people that it has in it at this point in time with the technology. There is no need for a huge assessor's department anymore. That's where you've got to start looking at it. Quit mowing the lawns. Start cutting back in those areas. It isn't going to cost you any money. You're not going to lose out on anything. But we're losing with the sheriff's department being underfunded in the condition that it's in and the ability to take care of the bad guys. And Spokane is getting ate up by them. Both the city, the valley, and the county. And you all know it. And you're not out there saying, we have got to get the money to do this. You're doing just the opposite. And that's why I'm upset. That's what I'm mad about. Because you need to fix it. That's why you're there. That's your responsibility, and that's what you've got to live with when these things start all falling apart, and it is falling apart. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So that completes all of the folks that I have signed up for this evening. Is there anybody else that would like to provide any testimony for us tonight? Sure, come on up, sir. And I ask before you leave if you'd fill out a yellow slip so we can maintain an accurate record.
Sure. I didn't plan on speaking tonight.
Give us your name.
My name is Tyler Hathaway. I'm not the best public speaker, and I'm probably the youngest one here, so forgive me. I might stumble a bit. But frankly, I am also frustrated and mad. I'm 23 years old, and in the last year, I've had to stand on my front lawn twice, I think, where me and a couple neighbors were having lots of people that are aggressive and angry walking up our streets. And we were by ourselves. As one of the guys said, up north, up in counties, we don't have a fast response time for police to get to our areas, and we have no backup coming as civilians, you know. We have no help. Guy once told me, he said, I carry a gun because a police officer's too heavy. He said a Colt 45 does the same job, and that's why they carry them. They carry them to protect themselves. And, you know, as other guys have said, they went out and buy guns because they're willing to face the morality of having to possibly defend themselves because there's no one to defend them. And that is not the police officer's fault. That is not having enough of them to do the apt job of protecting us. As citizens of the United States, we look to people like you guys and the police to provide an apt amount of protection so that we can remain safe in our freedoms and beliefs. And without the proper amount of funding, apparently that cannot happen. And so, as the last guy said, you know, if we have to raise taxes, if we have to do something to fix it, then we need to fix it. You guys do work for us. You are elected officials. And it is your responsibility to remind yourselves every morning when you get up that it is for our safety and your safety that you have jobs. It is your responsibility to make sure that we are safe and protected. Now, the police force is overstressed and overworked. I have several friends and acquaintances in the police force. Officer David Morris, I've known him for almost 8 years, off and on. And people like them have told me that they don't have backup. They don't have anybody that can take care of them, make sure that they're safe on the roads. You know, they have cars that are outdated. They have not good enough supplies, not enough people. People live in counties are so far out of reach that if they call 911 because they have someone pointing a gun to their head, or their children or their babies or their wife's being raped and they can't do anything about it, they have nobody coming to protect them. I know my time's up. I'm finishing. When my mom had someone attack her, my thoughts are, no one's coming. And that is not a thought that I think anybody in this room wants to have. That nobody is coming to protect their family, and nobody's coming to be able to do that, and that is not their fault. It is because we don't have enough of them to do the job. And when I leave to go to work, or if I stay home and go to sleep, and something happens to my family, if it's my fault that I have not provided enough for you guys to provide for us, that's my fault. But at this point, I don't see that being a problem because nothing has been brought to us to say we need help. And if you guys need help so that you guys can protect us, I say ask us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gimmel, currently in the sheriff's budget, how many funded positions are vacant? So,
16. We also have some issues in detention services where they have some vacancies that they've had some struggles replacing those too. Then leads to more overtime, which kind of keeps the cycle going.
So just so that you understand, we have 16 positions inside the sheriff's budget today,
Funded.
that are fully funded that he cannot fill. Okay? So it's not just a matter of money. It's about, and one lady said it earlier, getting people that are willing and able to serve as police officers, sheriff deputies, is becoming more and more of a challenge. One gentleman said, you know, the number of snow-top individuals, I'm not going to say gray hair, but snow-topped individuals, is increasing. And the young people that can fill a lot of those positions are not choosing to go in law enforcement, and it's making it difficult to fill those positions. 16 fully funded positions right now in the sheriff's department that are not filled. So it's not just money. It's a combination of a number of things. And I know the sheriff is working real hard to fill those positions. I know he is doing his best to recruit and to fill those positions. So I just want to make sure that you understand that, you know, it's not just the funding that is being a challenge in the sheriff's department. Anybody else like to provide any testimony for us tonight? Second call for anybody wanting to provide testimony, third and final call. As we indicated last week, we are not closing the hearing. We are going to continue this until we finally adopt a budget. So again, if you have a moment that says, I could have, would have, should have said this, say it. Do it, put it in an email, put it in whatever form that you want to communicate it to us. Like I say, we are not here because we choose to be here. We are here as a result of the actions of a whole lot of different things that are, quite frank, and it's not saying it as an excuse, it's a fact. And if you all you have to do is look at the presentation on how we got here, and you'll understand that. When the state passes an unfunded mandate, what they're telling us as a community is that they know more about our community than we do. And they're spending your tax dollars on their agenda. Not on your agenda, not on our agenda, on their agenda. And so that's taking money out of our pockets that we could use to pay for deputies, pay for the criminal justice system, pay for detention services, pay for a lot of other services that are priorities for our citizens in this community. And so, as I indicated earlier, I was just Friday meeting with county commissioners from across the state. There are two things that we understand the state legislature funds: disasters and litigation. That's what they fund. And so we are at a point where we're ready to meet both of those. There are counties in this state today that are seriously at the brink of saying, handing over the keys to the governor and saying, it's yours, you take over. We cannot fund services under this model. We had a half-day conversation as an organization about filing a lawsuit against the state to force them to start funding their responsibilities, because it's robbing our local taxpayers of resources and revenue to pay for the things that are important for us here in this community. Not a single county that said, no, we don't want to sue the state. Now the conversation is over what? They fund disasters, and they fund litigation. So anyway, when I talk about this is not unique to Spokane, this is not unique to Spokane. This is a state issue. This is a state failed funding model. We have campaigned with the state legislature for the last 4 years. Fix this, fix this. There's a number of different ways the state legislature could provide us the resources necessary to fix this. They haven't. They turned their back and said, you fix it at the local level. And yet that 1% cap, the 1% cap that they hold over the heads of cities and counties, they waived that for themselves so that they could solve their problem with the McCleary decision. They increased the property taxes by greater than 1% to solve McCleary, but they won't provide resources so that we can increase the property taxes to pay for the services to keep deputies on the road and keep our citizens safe. They respond to disasters and litigation. And so that's part of the conversation. Thank you so much for being here. I know these are difficult conversations. These are difficult decisions that we're going to be making, but we're going to be making it in the full daylight. We're going to be making it with you. We heard what you said. We'll continue to listen. We'll continue to find that balance to try and make sure that we keep our community safe. I know that Commissioner Kearns, and I know that I am, and I know that the sheriff is committed to trying to keep you safe. We're committed to that. We're going to use our resources to the best we can to make sure that we can do that. So again, thank you so much for being here. And with that, then, we have one last public forum at the end. I do not have anybody signed up. Is there anybody in the audience who would provide any testimony as the open public forum? Seeing nobody, run to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, have a safe night and good travels home.